So I've been trying to work out exactly what happened on the night of October the 1st, 2017 in Las Vegas, specifically at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, where a gunman opened fire on the crowd. This has been a particularly difficult timeline to try and assemble because there has been so much information and misinformation floating around, in addition to various extreme conspiracy theories, that it's very difficult to know what you can reliably use as evidence. To chronicle this video will be part one of an unknown number of videos, in which I try to get to the bottom of what really happened, at least given the information we have at hand. A lot of the information I will present will be unverified by me or any authorities or any sources beyond the person who presented it. I can't necessarily vouch for these pieces of evidence, and where and when I can't be certain, I will make sure to note. I will also do my best to be objective and not editorialise in any way, and if for any reason I'm given to editorialising, I will let you know why. In the initial days after the massacre, in which 59 people died and over 500 people were wounded, we were presented by the Los Angeles Police Department with this timeline. At 10:05 PM, the first shots were fired by the suspect. This was seen on closed-circuit television from the concert venue. At 10:12 PM, the first two officers arrived on the 31st floor and announced gunfire coming from directly above them. At 10:15 PM, the last shots are fired from the suspect per a body-worn camera. At 10:17 PM, the first two officers arrive on the 32nd floor. At 10:18 PM, a security officer tells LVMPD officers he was shot and gives the exact location of the suspect's room. At 10:26 to 10:30 PM, 8 additional officers arrive on the 32nd floor and begin to move systematically down the hallway, clearing every room and looking for any injured people. They move this way because they no longer hear the gunfire of an active shooter. At 10:55 PM, 8 officers arrive in the stairwell at the opposite end of the hallway nearest to the suspect's room. At 11:20 PM, the first breach is set off and officers enter the room. They observe the suspect down on the ground and see a second door that could not be accessed from their position. At 11:27 PM, the second breach is set off, allowing officers to access the second room. They quickly realise that there is no one else in the rooms and announce over the radio that the suspect is down. This timeline of the shooting at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas is incomplete, but it's also not the only shooting in Las Vegas on that night, at least according to social media reports by people on the ground. I have seen many social media postings much like this one from someone called Ricky Rawlerson that went viral with tens of thousands of shares. She says, "So here goes, especially to those of you saying stop talking about this, stop making assumptions, etc. Call me crazy, call me dramatic, call me whatever you want. I'm posting this for those of us who were on the strip Sunday night and who know what we saw and were told by police officers, security guards, and even the local news when all of this madness started. I am posting this in hopes of informing others who believed everything they've seen on the news. If while leaving the Cosmopolitan we had been told there was one shooting at the Mandalay Bay, Anthony and I would have not been worried for our lives, and we would have continued to go out, knowing that we weren't headed to that particular area of the strip. But that's not what we were told. We were told that there were 7 confirmed shooters and confirmed deaths at multiple hotels, including the Bellagio, the Aria and the New York. Being told this by a security guard who then told us to go to the 3rd floor to safety. However, Anthony says, "No, Ricky, this is a very popular hotel. I don't feel like the 3rd floor of this popular hotel in public is the safest space. We're going to try and get out of here right now." Running back to our hotel next door, Vidara, we are told once again by police security checking our ID and room key, "Yes, multiple hotels affected. Go to your room and do not leave." We then get to the room, immediately turn on the news and start watching out of our windows to figure out what's going on. The news also states, live, that the Bellagio has been affected and there was 1 confirmed death. Now, skip ahead about an hour. The news is no longer stating anything about other hotels affected. They say it is 1 person. Every bit of info that has been initially given to us was disappearing. We could physically see from our window view fire alarms going off at the Cosmopolitan, and multiple cop cars and ambulances pulling up there as well. We wanted more information about what was happening at these other hotels right next to us, and we weren't getting it. And we still aren't. This next clip is from a woman who was staying at the Bellagio Hotel who experienced what this previous poster was talking about. The clip's rather lengthy, but please pay attention to what she's saying and the timestamps she gives. in her description of events.
So we're sitting there talking, and I was texting my friend who was at the festival, who I'd been chatting with all day long, and she wasn't answering. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just loud and she'll look at her phone. So we're sitting there, like 10:30, 10:45. And I'm like, well, this isn't normal, because normally she's known me for years and years. She's not like a flake, I guess you could say. So about 11 o'clock, I told Daniel, I'm like, well, I know that they're going ziplining downtown, and I know they had already gotten their tickets. So let's just get a drink, and then because we were just sitting there. We didn't know if they were going to come walking in, and we were just all going to leave. So,
and this was 11 o'clock p.m.
11 o'clock. So, because I was just drinking water prior to that. We hadn't drank. And like I said, we were with his family and everything, and the kids. So we went to order a drink, and then all of a sudden, this huge crowd, I can't even explain it. Just a stampede came rushing through the doors. The block things that you stand at the front, the red ropes, were all just, people weren't running around them. They were running over them. And we heard the gunfire. And the best that I can describe it, Tracy, is the fact that it was like if you take a board and you drop it on the floor, and it was like just this pop, 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 like that. And it was automatic. And I didn't know what kind of gunfire until my husband told me afterwards. And because I've never heard anything like that. And all I thought was, dear Lord, what? My husband literally takes me and puts me down underneath the table, which I showed in the video. This other lady was laying head to head with me, and she's crying. And she I guess had jumped over the cement pillars, and she's crying. I don't know where my son is. And I was like, that's okay. I said, just hold on. He'll be okay. He'll be okay. And I just started praying. At 11 o'clock, right abouts, is when we said, you know what, let's just get a drink if she's not coming or something. So probably it was around 11:15, 11:20-ish was when the whole flood of people started flying in through the doors. Now, this is probably about 10 minutes to 12. We had heard the sirens. So immediately we turned on the TV thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to be all around outside the Bellagio. We're looking at the stuff that's going on at Mandalay Bay. And we're like, wait a minute, what the heck? Because we had zero clue that anything had happened at Mandalay Bay. And they were showing us all this stuff, and we're like, oh, dear Lord. So immediately my husband says, change clothes, put your gym clothes on with your tennis shoes, because we didn't know at that point if something was going to happen and we were going to have to run.
As you can see from the Google satellite footage, the Mandalay Bay Hotel is here, with the Las Vegas village where the festival was taking place there, and the shooter was firing across from there down into it. The Bellagio is approximately a mile away here. I don't believe that she would have been hearing the same gunshots. Also, judging by the timestamps that she is using in her account, if they are accurate, the gunshots she heard happened 45 minutes after the Mandalay Bay shooter had finished shooting. Our witness also recorded some footage directly on her cell phone from the events at the Bellagio Hotel.
Okay, this is a live video inside the Bellagio Hotel, where everybody had to come together because there was mass chaos. And as you can see, everybody is around here sitting. So we haven't been able to go back to our rooms. What's the current situation? We can't leave. And we're just here because of everything that happened earlier, and now we're...
Well, whatever you're hearing on the news or whatever, who knows what...
Yeah, because what they're reporting on the news is incorrect.
Yes, so...
And yeah, okay, so as long as you guys knew that too, that's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, all right. That they're reporting that nothing happened here, and we were actually sitting at the Petrosian Lounge when all the mass chaos happened, and we heard the pop, 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 pop. Yes,
At the front.
we were at the front. So, yeah, all right.
The civilian reports from the Bellagio Hotel appear to be corroborated by the police dispatches themselves.
Sergeant Jesse Wiggins, 744.
At 4:15 now, Bellagio, a few yards, hearing a lot of shots being fired. Please be advised the 415A Bellagio appears hearing a lot of shots being fired, not seeing anyone. They're on the first floor and he's whispering. And now she's saying suspects are inside with her and she's whispering, cannot talk.
Time left on that report, please.
I came in at 23:55 for go.
As the dispatcher said there, that came in at 23:55, so nearly midnight, about an hour and a half after the shooter at the Mandalay Bay Hotel had finished firing. There is also footage available that shows apparent commotion and stampeding at other hotels, such as this footage from Caesar's Palace on the same night at roughly the same time.
Careful, 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 everybody.
And the reports of multiple shooters and multiple casualties are also corroborated by the police dispatches.
Control 224 IC, confirming I have casualties at Alibaba and Giles east of the Catholic Shrine, as well as in the Mandalay Bay. So we have two scenes. Stage A is going to be the front parking lot of South Central. The CP is in the South Central, confirming the Mandalay Bay and Alibaba and Giles are the two shooting locations. Do we have a third?
In reference to 415A at New York, they're advising the active shooters possibly coming down the escalator from New York to Excalibur.
Control Avery 63, over by the Motel 6 by Tropicana. There's a white RV. I have pedestrians saying that the older white male in fatigues and a black bag went into the motorhome.
The police dispatches also corroborate various aspects of the original narrative.
It's room 135 on the 32nd floor. I need to SWAT.
Just confirming that is the Mandalay Bay.
Do it.
Just confirming it is the Mandalay Bay, 32nd floor, room 135.
That is affirmed. We have a four-man element, however, to the very end of the hall. Control. We just spoke with security at Mandalay Bay. They're saying they have shots fired on 29 and 32nd levels.
182 SE. We have a security officer also shot in the leg on the 32nd floor. He's standing by the elevator.
Control 3.
182 SE. We might need to split these channels. We're going to need a dedicated one for this 32nd floor, I think. He shot down the hallway and hit a security guard.
And it's at this point that the various events at the other hotels and other locations evaporates from the narrative, as this apparently never made it to mainstream media reporting, and so it's very difficult to find anything concrete on the subject. From this point onwards, we are told that there was but one shooter in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The shooter was found dead inside room 135 from an apparent gunshot wound to the head. You can see on this map where he's laid out, and you can see the two round circles that indicate broken windows. It's interesting to note that one of the broken windows was in an adjacent room that had to be accessed by a door that the police had to break open to access. There were no weapons and ammo stockpiled in the second room, and it's not known why the shooter hired a second room adjacent. Pictures were quickly leaked to the media of the inside of the second room, in which you can see the body of the gunman and various firearms and stacks of ammunition placed around. This led to several conspiracy theories being formulated, because as you can see, the gunman has laid awkwardly on top of a rifle with another rifle covering over his leg. This was suggested by commentators that it was evidence of someone being in the room after he had been shot. There were also gun cases in a pool of blood by his head, which I'm not going to show unfortunately because of YouTube's censorship policies, that appear to have landed in the blood rather than have been covered by it. While I can't say this is strictly false, I don't believe it is enough evidence to suggest a second shooter, or assert that there was definitely a second shooter in the hotel room with him. Things fall as they fall, and this is not necessarily proof, in my opinion. As reported by the New York Times, police officials confirmed the authenticity of the photographs of the scene at the gunman's hotel. From his perch on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, the gunman, who was identified by police as Stephen Paddock, used rapid-fire weapons to shoot at concertgoers at a music festival. At least 3 AR-15-style rifles were visible on the floor and on the furniture, along with at least a dozen high-capacity magazines, which can hold up to 100 rounds. AR-15-style rifles are a civilian variant of a standard service rifle used by the American military for more than half a century. Unlike the military versions, they only support semi-automatic fire. 2 of the rifles were outfitted with medium magnification scopes and 2-legged supports known as bipods attached to the undersides of the weapons. These additions would have helped Mr. Paddock target specific individuals. At least one of the weapons in the photographs appears to have been modified with a bump stock, a device that allows a semi-automatic rifle to fire rounds faster, at a rate similar to a fully automatic weapon. Officials said that 12 of the rifles found in the suite were outfitted with bump stocks. You can see by this aerial photograph that nothing about this encounter would be incongruent. The shooter was about 450 meters away from the festival itself. The only thing that stands out about this account is the level of detail and the amount of effort and planning that appears to have gone into this attack. We are introduced to Stephen Paddock via his brother, such as in this CNN report.
There's absolutely no way I can even conceive that my brother would shoot a bunch of people he doesn't even know. Steve had no children ever that I know of. He was an army of one. I mean, he had a girlfriend, but he, hung out by himself and did stuff. Why did he? My father was on the top 10 list for a while. His name's Benjamin Hotchkiss Paddock, I believe is his name. I didn't know him. We didn't know him. He was in jail and broken out of jail. I was born on the run, and that's the last time he was ever associated with by our family. Steve had nothing to do with any political organization, religious organization, no white supremacists, nothing, as far as I know. I've only known him for 57 years. He didn't hunt, he barely shot his guns ever. He had a couple of handguns that he kept in a safe. He doesn't even have parking tickets. He has no criminal record. He has no record of any affiliations. He has nothing.
Yeah, what
he
did he like
gambled.
to do? Just normal.
He was a guy who played video poker. Now, he played at a higher level than you people do probably, but he had a lot more money than you people had. He was a wealthy guy, and he liked to play video poker. He went on cruises. He sent his mother cookies big, huge, crazy boxes of cookies and stuff. He could do anything he wanted.
So what we learn from this testimony from his brother is that he was a retired accountant, he was a professional gambler, and he used to spend a lot of time at casinos, but we'll look more into his motives in the second part. There was a great deal of focus in the mainstream media brought to the fact that he was white, male, and, as this article says, armed to the teeth. Apparently, the bump stock works by replacing the standard stock or butt on a semi-automatic rifle, which enables it to fire like a machine gun. Bump stocks are legal and use recoil to help maintain constant pressure to a particular trigger point. It requires practice, as forward pressure must be applied to the forestock to maximize rates of fire. Understandably, media reporting has focused on the bump stock because it appears that the weapons have been modified to inflict maximum carnage. All of his guns were purchased legally. He passed all background checks with no red flags at all. Some of the weapons were purchased from Discount Firearms and Ammo, a store in Las Vegas. In their records, they found that Stephen Paddock had purchased 2 rifles and a handgun in 2 separate purchases in December and November of 2016. There was nothing noteworthy about the purchase, and they have no record of him being in the store on any other occasion other than the 2 days that he purchased the firearms. Paddock had apparently tried to buy tracer ammo at a gun show. The Los Angeles police reported that he had actually purchased 1,000 rounds of tracer ammo, but CNN reported that he didn't use tracer ammo during his Sunday massacre and that he had unsuccessfully tried to buy some at a gun show near Phoenix. These conflicting reports are indicative of much of the information that has been surrounding this event. The police investigation also revealed that Paddock reportedly searched for hotels overlooking Fenway Park. NBC reported that there was no evidence that Paddock travelled to Boston, but he did research outdoor concerts and hotels in the area, most of which only offer an obstructed view inside the ballpark. The report did not state the dates of the research, although Fenway, home to the Red Sox, has hosted several concerts in recent months. Paddock had also researched locations in Chicago and Boston in the weeks before the shooting. He even booked a hotel room overlooking Chicago's popular Lollapalooza music festival, but never showed up. It appears that Paddock may well have staged a target practice before the Las Vegas shooting. Investigators uncovered surveillance footage of Paddock driving alone into the desert on Friday, before the shooting, to a remote location known by locals as an area for target practice. Police believe that he had used the Mandalay Bay's freight elevator before the attack, presumably to load his weaponry up to his hotel room. Although it wasn't clear what Paddock had used the freight elevator for or how often he had used it, given the amount and weight of the equipment that Paddock had taken to the hotel room, it seems to be a reasonable inference that Paddock had used the freight elevator to transport it to his room. Paddock apparently had access to the service elevator as a perk, which is apparently something offered to, quote, high rollers. No further information about this was given. During his 11-minute shooting spree, Paddock had apparently fired incendiary rounds at a jet fuel tank that stood opposite, and the gunfire apparently did pierce the tank itself. However, jet fuel does not just ignite from a bullet striking it, and the tanks were designed to contain any such explosion in any event. After the event, police raided his home in Mesquite, 80 miles northwest of Las Vegas, to find that he had 19 more firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and several pounds of the explosive powder tannerite. Tannerite is a legal substance and is often used at gun ranges to create explosive targets for target practice. In his car, they also found a quantity of ammonium nitrate, a fertilizer that can be used to create a powerful explosive. It's an infamous bomb-making ingredient that's been used by terrorists, including the IRA, Al-Qaeda, and the Oklahoma bomber Timothy McVeigh. Police did not know whether Paddock intended to use these chemicals as an explosive. He also owned a hunting license. In his hotel room at the Mandalay Bay, on his sideboard was also a pen and a piece of paper with figures contained on it. According to officials, these were figures for wind, trajectory, and distance. This was revealed by LAPD's Officer Dave Newton, who said, "I could see on it he had written in the distance, the elevation he was on, and the drop of what his bullet was going to be for the crowd. So he had written that down, and figured out so he would know where to shoot his targets from there." When pressed about what the meaning of the numbers were, Newton said Paddock must have done the calculations online or something to figure out what his altitude was going to be and how high up he was, how far the crowd was going to be and what, at that distance, and what the drop of the bullet was going to be. He hadn't written out the calculations, all he had written out was the final numbers that were on the sheet. Images of the notes, or any information about what the actual numbers are, appear to have not been released at this time, so I cannot in any way corroborate this. Paddock had also taken the time to station cameras inside and outside his hotel room. The police said that Paddock put a camera in a room service trolley outside his room at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Sheriff Joe Lombardo said he believed that this was to alert Paddock when police were coming. He did not give any further details or say if Paddock filmed the carnage he carried out.
Sheriff, can I ask you, Sheriff, can you talk then to what was found inside that hotel room that the gunman used? Specifically, CBS News is reporting that there was a camera inside that room. Was the gunman recording? Was the gunman transmitting that video anywhere else?
I'm not aware of any transmission, but there was cameras. There was cameras located outside of the room and inside of the room, along with the firearms.
And he had set up how many cameras?
I don't know what the specific numbers
For what
are.
purpose do you think?
Well, I anticipate he was looking for anybody coming to take him into custody.
So essentially, you have a recording of him carrying out this carnage?
No, that's not essentially what I'm saying. That is being evaluated. The FBI took all digital and electronic evidence into custody, and we are evaluating.
Despite Sheriff Lombardo's protestations that they do not necessarily have video footage of Paddock carrying out his massacre, it would seem that they are probably in possession of video footage of Paddock carrying out his massacre. However, until these videotapes are released, unfortunately we have no further information on this. Sheriff Lombardo also believes that Stephen Paddock probably did not do all of this on his own.
No.
Sheriff, you mentioned accomplices. We've talked previously about Mary Lou Danley as a person of interest. Are there any other persons of interest in this investigation?
Well, is there any other? No. Concrete? No. We're looking at it this way, Ken. Is there another one? And we're determining to find out if there was. I mean, it's important not to close this case until we run down everything.
Should we ask the terrorist question again?
Because look at this. I mean, you look at the weapon obtaining, the different amounts of tannerite available. Do you think this was all accomplished on his own? Self-value, face value. You got to make the assumption that he had to have some help at some point, and we want to ensure that that's the answer. Maybe he's a super guy. Maybe he superhero, not a hero, a super. I won't use the word. Maybe he's, a super yahoo that was working out all this on his own, but it would be hard for me to believe that.
And to that, do we need to ask the
And here's the reason why. Put one and one together, or two and two together. Another residence in Reno with several firearms, okay? Electronics and everything else associated with it, large amounts of ammo. A place in Mesquite. We know that he had a girlfriend. Do you think this is all self-facing? The individuals are just, without talking to somebody, it was sequestered amongst themselves. I mean, come on, folks. These type of investigations have been occurring in the last few years, and we have to evaluate that.
Paddock had apparently checked into his hotel 3 days before the shooting. Lombardo told reporters that Paddock had used identification from Marilu Danley, the woman the police have identified as his roommate in Mesquite, and we later found out was also his girlfriend. The police indicated on Monday that Danley was out of the country at the time, and they were not pursuing her in connection to the attack. This account appears to be contradicted by a picture taken and circulated by internet sleuths of the system itself, registering Paddock as having checked in on the 25th of September, apparently using his own name of Stephen Paddock instead of Marilu Danley. However, I cannot confirm the authenticity of this picture. A valet ticket surfaced of an arrival on the 1st of October under the name of Marilu Danley. This would appear to corroborate that Stephen Paddock was using her ID. Why he was allowed to do this is yet unknown. A hotel receipt also surfaced from the 27th of September that appears to show that room service has delivered meals for 2 guests at Stephen Paddock's room. I can't confirm the veracity of this, but I've yet to see anyone deny it. This naturally led people to believe that a second person was at Stephen Paddock's hotel, and that person was most likely to be Marilu Danley, his girlfriend. However, Danley, originally from the Philippines, had returned there to visit friends and family and arrived back on Tuesday night to aid investigators with their investigation. According to ABC News, Danley had left the United States for the Philippines on September the 15th, about 2 weeks before Paddock checked into his room at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Other reports said that she left the country on September the 25th. A spokesman for the Philippines National Bureau of Investigation said they were looking into reports that Danley had arrived in the Philippines that month and that Paddock had sent her $100,000 via a wire transfer. In a statement, she went on to explain that Paddock had found a cheap airline ticket to the Philippines and suggested she take a trip there to visit friends and family. Apparently, he had wired her money to buy a house for her and her family. She says, "I was grateful, but honestly, I was worried that the first unexpected trip home, and that the money was a way of breaking up with me. It never occurred to me in any way whatsoever he was planning violence against anyone." Paddock and Danley had met because Danley was working at a casino that Paddock frequented, and she ended up waiting on him and forming a friendship with him, and eventually this turned into a relationship, and she ended up divorcing her husband to be with him. Unlike Paddock, Marilou Danley had a Facebook profile which has been archived, and you can see on it that she was also a gambler. Although presumably she was not as proficient as Paddock, and unlike him, did not do this professionally. Apparently Danley was aware of his interest in guns, however. A Texas firearm dealer who sold handguns to him in 2010 and 2011 remembers him coming into the shop last year with his girlfriend Marilou Danley. They apparently didn't make any purchases on that visit, but asked about a way to modify a gun to make it easier to pull the trigger. But the dealer did say that Danley herself didn't show any interest in guns. Although I believe that we can be sure that Danley knew that Paddock himself did have an interest in guns. After the shooting, she received a phone call from her brother and told him in the ensuing conversation that she had a clean conscience. Her brother said, "I called her up immediately and she said, 'Relax, we shouldn't worry about it, I'll fix it, do not panic, I have a clean conscience.' And she also told him, 'I didn't have anything to do with this.'" Danley had been confirmed to be out of the country for the time period surrounding the massacre, so the question on everyone's lips is, who is the second person? In the days prior to the attack, Paddock was seen with a mystery woman who was later confirmed to be a prostitute. The authorities did not give any information on the woman's identity, and there is no reason to believe that she is otherwise involved beyond the engagement of her services. There were also new discoveries made regarding some small but apparently important details that have been refuted by the authorities. It was initially claimed that there was a cell phone charger in the room that didn't match any of Paddock's phones, but this has been refuted, and they did not believe that anyone else had used Paddock's hotel keycard while Paddock's car was out of the garage, which was initially reported. So to answer the question, was there a second shooter in Paddock's hotel room? The authorities believe that there was not. The police department under Sheriff Kevin McMahill told reporters during a Friday afternoon press conference that the authorities have reviewed voluminous accounts of video footage and were confident that there is not another shooter on the 32nd floor hotel room with Stephen Paddock when he carried out his massacre. He went on to clarify that the authorities are not confident about whether someone else had knowledge of the attack before it happened. So this brings us to the most important question. Was there a second shooter? Now, this has been claimed by various members of the public, including one of the victims of the attack.
I definitely do believe that there was 100% more than one shooter. Every other person that I've talked to that did get unfortunately hit as well have all said the same things. When we got shot initially, didn't care which way it came from. I just know it was time to run. We ran about 200 yards in a 180-degree line from where the gunshots were coming from, at least the sounds. Got behind a car, made a call to my parents, and I thought that's kind of where I'm hanging out right now, at least until everything kind of subsides. Past that, I'm waiting, and all of a sudden we hear the little whizzing going by us, and the bullets are just flying by. And when something's coming up and down, or at least from a different angle, they're either going to hit the ground, they're going to, a lot of different things are going to happen. When someone's shooting from a straight horizontal line, it's just going to keep flying. As soon as we heard a little break in it, we knew we had to keep running. We heard the gunfires approaching where we were. They just started getting closer and closer and louder. And I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started, and that's when we knew we had to run. I do believe that there were people inside of the venue that once the initial shooting started, and everyone kind of panicked, running everything. Once the lights turned on the stage and kind of lit everything up, it was a lit target. Every other night at the concert, everybody kind of exited right off Las Vegas Boulevard. That was standard. That was routine. You get out of the concert and you go down and go to the next casino. Well, at 10 o'clock, they they closed every exit on Las Vegas Boulevard, every single one. They gated them all closed with chain link fences. 10:08, the shooting started, and it was we were pigs sitting in a corral. We only had one exit to go out of, and I'm sure nobody was familiar with where we were going. Everyone was just running, kind of following the sheet is what we were doing. The same exits that we have came in and left Friday and Saturday night were definitely closed. There were people that went over there and tried to leave, and there were cops that were telling them, no, you have to go the other way. You can't come out here. Go the other way, run the other way. There was just a lot of things that just kind of didn't sit right. Of course, they're trying to come up with and try and close this as quick as they can, and try and put this behind everybody, the whole country, the whole nine. But it was just very interesting, with all the police activity, even at the hospitals, interviewing the patients. I don't think one patient has been able to leave without giving another statement, myself included. As soon as I got discharged, there were 2 federal agents that wanted to get another audio statement when I left. And I'm telling them the same thing I'm telling you. I definitely believe there were at least 3 to 5 shooters, and 100% there was not just one person shooting from the 32nd floor.
This was reported by many other members of the public to the police, as is evidenced by the reports on the police dispatches.
159 is coming from like the 50th or 60th floor, north of the Mandalay Bay. It's coming out a window. Control Planet 7910. We're seeing local flashes in the middle of Mandalay Bay on the north side, kind of on the west tower, but towards the center of the casino, like one of the middle floors.
Copy. All units need to stage Boulevard Tropicana.
Control, Thermary 35. We're getting from civilians saying that there might have been 3 shooters.
Copy.
GC60, we've interviewed multiple people leaving the concert venue that is on the north side of Hacienda, east side of Las Vegas Boulevard, saying that there are multiple people that have been shot or were shooting in this concert venue.
And we have a 4-man team up here, and we have another element coming to us. So we're going to have about 8 on the 32nd floor. We will need the 29th floor. It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons.
There is a great deal of cell phone footage that purports to show a shooter on the 4th floor and muzzle flashes coming from a window there. This is the clearest footage of it that I could find.
This shit is...
I do not believe that this is actually a second shooter on the 4th floor. To start with, the windows on the Mandalay Bay do not open, and there wasn't a broken window on the 4th floor, or if there was, I have seen no evidence of it. And this was also picked up on the police dispatches as a flashing light.
Control Planet 7910. We're seeing local flashes in the middle of Mandalay Bay on the north side, kind of on the west tower, but towards the center of the casino, like one of the middle floors.
Control, Thermary 35. I haven't seen any flashes from Mandalay, but if it is coming from Mandalay, there is a strobe light coming from one of those windows on the east side.
Given how the flashes of light didn't line up with the gunshot noises we could hear in the footage, I'm inclined to presume that this was not, in fact, a second shooter on the 4th floor. There has been a lot of confusion and questioning around whether there was in fact a second shooter or whether there was an echo of the gunshots coming back and being returned to the people listening and watching and filming. I don't know whether this is true or not, so I can't comment on it. But I did find footage that appears to show 2 different types of gunshots happening at the same time.
It's not that blinking light now.
I want to reiterate for those of low comprehension, I do not know if there was a second shooter at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. I do not know if that footage was doctored, I do not know if that was police perhaps returning fire or something of the sort. All I know is that that footage was being shared widely on the internet because it appears to show two different types of firearm being fired at the same time. In addition to this, there was a report approximately 45 minutes before the attack began that there was an attack that was due to happen on the music festival.
Yeah, so there was a lady who pushed her way forward into the concert venue into the first row, and she started messing with another lady and told us that we are all going to die tonight.
Do you know why she was saying that? I mean, was this after the shots were fired, or?
It was about 45 minutes before the shots were actually fired, but then she was escorted out by security.
The young lady being interviewed is Brianna Hendricks, a woman who was there and reported another Hispanic woman behaving strangely before her outburst. She claimed the woman had claimed her boyfriend could not breathe in order to push her way through the crowd to the front row. She said, "It seemed she was telling us to either warn us or she was part of it, and she was telling us because she knew we were going to die. It was so scary. It felt like she had knowledge of what was about to happen." She described the woman who gave the warning as Hispanic, probably about 5'5" with brown hair, and said that her boyfriend was also Hispanic. I have seen no further investigation or reporting into who this Hispanic woman is, and I don't know anything more about her. I would have thought that identifying who this Hispanic woman was would be priority number one, as she appears to have had advanced knowledge of the shooting. However, as I said, I have seen nothing further. And finally, there is a discrepancy in the official timeline given by the Los Angeles Police Department. While it was initially reported that around 10:15, a security officer had interrupted Paddock's shooting spree and had himself been shot, that story has now changed. The security guard was apparently shot before Paddock engaged on his killing spree. He shot and wounded the security guard who came to his floor at the Mandalay Bay Hotel to investigate an open door near Paddock's suite, said Sheriff Lombardo, providing new details on what occurred immediately before. The security guard was Jesus Campos, and he was struck in the leg by the gunman from behind the door as he shot into the hallway of the 32nd floor. Paddock apparently detected Campos via surveillance cameras he had set up outside his hotel suite. Paddock shot the guard at 9:59 p.m. local time, shortly before raining down bullets on the Route 91 Harvest Festival. Apparently, after being injured, Campos immediately notified security of his situation. He also prevented a maintenance worker from being shot, but Lombardo also acknowledged that police weren't aware of Campos being shot until they met him in the hallway after exiting the elevator. The revision to the timeline raises new questions about the timing of the police response, about why Paddock stopped shooting around 10:15 p.m, if it were not Campos' intervention that caused him to do so. According to police accounts, there was more than an hour between the moment the gunfire ended and the moment the officers breached and entered Paddock's room. The hotel maintenance worker that Campos saved was Stephen Shook, and he told NBC News that he was checking out a report of a jammed fire door on the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay when he heard gunshots, and the hotel security guard who had been shot in the leg peeked out from an alcove and told him to take cover. He said, "It was kind of relentless, so I called over the radio what was going on. As soon as the shooting stopped, we made our way down the hallway and took cover again, then the shooting started again." Gunshots can be heard in the background as Shook used his radio to report the shooting, telling a dispatcher, "Call the police, someone's firing a gun up here. Someone's firing a rifle on the 32nd floor down the hallway." Campos also used his radio and possibly a hallway phone to call hotel dispatchers for help, police have said. It was unclear if and when the hotel relayed the reports of shots being fired to the police. This refutes previous reporting done by The Independent, who claimed that the police discovered Paddock's location via a smoke alarm, apparently that was triggered by all of the gunfire in his hotel room. As I mentioned earlier, the reporting on this has been very confused, with many contradictory accounts, sometimes within the same paper and sometimes within the same article. MGM Resorts, the owners of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, have disputed the new timeline produced by the Las Vegas police. In a statement, they said, "This remains an ongoing investigation with a lot of moving parts. As evidenced by law enforcement briefings over the past week, many facts are still unverified and continue to change as events are under review. We cannot be certain about the most recent timeline that has been communicated publicly, and we believe what is currently being expressed may not be accurate. However, the Las Vegas police defended their changes to the timeline, saying we can't put band-aids on everything, and that the information the police release is what they know at the time and everything is subject to change as the investigation develops. Naturally, this raises some questions that are still, as of yet, unexplained. Such as, why did it take the police 25 minutes to locate the killer when they had a security guard who had already been shot by him and was outside his hotel room, and then another 45 minutes to storm his suite? And also, why did Stephen Paddock stop firing? According to their initial narrative, Paddock stopped firing because he was interrupted by Campos. However, if Campos was shot before the firing spree, why did he stop after 10 minutes, especially given how well armed he was? If all is as we are being told, Paddock had equipped himself with a huge amount of weaponry. He had body armor and he had explosives, and he had barricaded the door to his hotel. So why did he stop after only 10 minutes? There are, of course, many other unanswered questions, such as why were there disturbances of this sort at other hotels after Paddock had apparently concluded his killing spree? Why are there so many reports of second shooters on the ground? And why is none of this being addressed by the media? But I think the most important question in all of this is, who is the 5'5" Hispanic lady, and how did she have advanced warning of the massacre?